Hello folks, StrayCat74 here. Sorry about that. OBS updated, and when it did, it changed all my microphone settings, so you couldn't hear me while I was doing that. So I have to do it all again, and I'll try and keep this slightly more brief because, 15 minutes of sitting here watching me babble on would be about typical for my channel. Yeah, it would. Okay, brief synopsis of the video I just made. For those of you watching this on YouTube, you won't have seen this. It was over on my Twitch because it's easier for me to hit start stream, which automatically kicks on record. So, well, if you're not watching me stream, because I didn't tell anybody I was going to stream, it is what it is. Okay, so let's go right into this. I've been seeing a lot of rocket stoves on eBay of late and videos on how to make them, and I found a nifty picture that I liked, so I made a miniature version. The ones on eBay, they start at like $50 and they go up from there. They're usually 4-inch square tubing. This one, I wanted to do something more affordable. So I got a piece of 1.5-inch by 12 black pipe nipple, about $12 at Home Depot, and then a 1.25 by 48 by 1/8-inch flat stock to do all of the additional stuff. I could have gotten thinner, but they didn't have anything thinner than 1/8. So this is way overbuilt for what it's going to be used for. Do not use galvanized steel tubing. The fumes from the galvanization will kill you. Look up metal lung fever. Don't use galvanized. That's why I used black pipe, because this is actually steel. Anyway, so, and I'll put the a link in the description for the plans I made with this. It took me 5 minutes to come up with the ideas and measurements, and it took me about an hour to draw it out in MS Paint, because I suck. I also bite like a nibble, but that's not the point. So anyway, so in about a little over 2 inches from the edge here, I made a 22.5 degree cut, and then I rotated the pipe around 180 degrees and welded it back in. That gave me a little bit more angle because I was freehanding it with an angle grinder than I really wanted. I wanted it a little bit more 45 degree overall, but this came out a little steeper than that. Then I measured over 4 inches to this point and measured back at a 45 degree. That'll give me a 90 degree corner here. This should have been a 45 degree angle. It's greater than that. It's closer to like 60. But like I said, I was freehanding it with an angle grinder. Tack weld these together. As I welded these pieces on, I tried to clean them up a little bit. As you can, well, you'll be able to see over on this side, after the welding, I tried to clean it up a little bit, but there was, like I said, I was freehanding it with an angle grinder. There's a bunch of gaps that had to get filled in, and I just haven't gone back through to clean that up. Then once I got this welded in the vertical position, I measured up about 6 inches from the bottom and cut off there, which left me about 4 inches off the top, and I really don't have anything to use that for. So for the flat stock, let me see if I can get a really good picture of that. You can see there's a 2-inch piece in here with a little air gap underneath it, and down at the end there's these little notches put into it for the air vent. The air goes underneath, comes out along the bottom to feed the fire. That's the rocket part of the stove. Fuel goes in here, and the burn chamber is back here a little bit so that the heat rises, comes up the chimney here, sucking more air in. And then we have the 2 crossbars. You'll see that the bars themselves are notched. Let me see if I can get it. Yeah, you can see, I'm doing this backwards on the screen, by the way. You can see that the flat stock is notched here about halfway through to fit over the the 1.5 inch pipe. Then they're notched in the middle, kind of like this, so that so to each other they fit fairly level. They are not quite level to the pipe. Like I said, I was freehanding it, and I don't have a miter box saw that cuts metal. This is just a prototype, so it's going to be a little wonky. For the handle, I wanted 5 inches here, but apparently I was off a little bit. I wanted to be able to grab a hold of this with a pair of gloves, and as you can see, there's more than enough room in there for gloves. This serves a second function, actually 3 functions. One is a spot to mount the rear foot. I had wanted it about here at the back of the tube, but with the handle sticking out that far, I figured, what the hell? Move that back, and that'll give me a little bit more pitch stability. I also should have made them a little bit wider to give me more lateral stability, but I figured 3 inches wide would be enough. I was wrong. I wanted those a little bit wider, and I also wanted the feet a little bit taller. I wanted them, I had designed them at 3/4 of an inch. I should have made them a full inch. But in any case, all welded together. This is a little pocket rocket stove, or a backpacker's rocket stove. The third function the handle does, by the way, is once this is cooled off, you can put a strap through the handle here to hang it off your backpack. Then when you're ready for it, just plop it down, stick your tinder in. Well, you can't see that there. Stick your tinder in the firebox, and then start feeding in your pencil lead sized tinder. Then as that burns in, get your number 2 pencil sized twigs, then your finger size, then your thumb size, and by that time this thing's going to be fairly well full. And I really need to do a test to see how long this will take to boil water. And depending on the weather outside today and whether or not I can get somebody to hold the camera, because it's either that or tripoded again, and tripods, it's fixed. I'd have to get up and mess with the camera a bunch, which would not be uncommon for me. So anyhow, if I get a chance to run outside to fire this up, I will, and I will bring you along. And if I do that today, I'll attach that to the end of this video, so you'll actually be able to see whether or not this even works. Anyhow, that's all I really got for you today, and unless I'm firing this up, in which case you'll see the video attached right about here. Howdy folks, StrayCat74 here. Welcome to the backyard, where we're going to be doing a first fire test on the Backpacker's pocket rocket stove that I built. The only tool I used for collecting the tinder is my buck knife that I've carried on my belt for nearly 30 years, a pencil sharpener with some fat wood. You might be able to see it down there. I'm not sure if you can in this light. I can see it down in there. There's a bunch of pencil shavings of fat wood. I'm going to use my petroleum jelly infused cotton ball that's covered with wax, and a Bic lighter because, well, I've got one. The kindling here is from the apple tree that should be right about here, and you can probably, actually it's over a little bit more, you can probably see a couple of the branches had been broken off. They're over there in front of the barn. I just went in there, grabbed a couple of dried broken twigs and stuff, about a handful worth, and that's what we're going to fire this up with. I'm going to do that, and I'll start recording again, and see you in a minute. Okay, I'm half hour in to try and get this thing to light, and the wood that I'm using, this apple wood, has been out in the rain for the last few weeks, so it's really not going very well. I don't know if you can see any of this, but I mean, we're getting smoke. I mean, it's drawing not well. So I'm going to have to wait for this to cool down find some dry wood, and do this again. Okay, so attempt 1 to get a fire going, not so successful. Okay, I've got a little bit of a fire going. I don't know if you can see that, but it's drawing into the chimney and coming up. The water is nowhere near as cold as it was when I put it in here. So we are getting draw, but we have to, and I think it just went out again. I'm going to have to blow on this a little bit more to get the fire going again, and we'll come back in a minute. Okay, that should be a little better. I'm getting some draw, but I'm afraid this is getting too choked with coals. I mean, I got a really good bed of coals in there, but I'm not really able to keep open flame going for very long. I think this might be too small in diameter, and I can't see on the screen because of the glare whether or not you can tell what those the fires being drawn in and up. You can see on the bottom of the cup here we are getting some soot, and the water is getting quite warm. It's going to take a while to boil a quart of water, but I'm going to let it keep going. I mean, while we're getting flame, it is drawing, but as I said, I think it's too choked with soot, and I don't know, man. I think I'm going to call this one busted. I mean, it was an interesting project. It was something I wanted to try, and as you can see, I got some really good coals in there. All I got to do is blow on them a little bit, and they'll flare back up to life. But it's starting to get choked in here, and I think that's what's killing it. It's just too small of a diameter. This would explain why nobody's done a pocket rocket stove before. And as I said, the water is getting warm. It's just going to take a very long damn time because that's a small tube. Anyhow, I mean, for a proof of concept here, I mean, I got a piece of fat wood in here, and as you can see, it's burning very hot. It's drawing very well, even with the flames almost out to the intake tube there. And we're getting lots of soot out the top. We're getting good smoke. We're getting really good draw. But again, I'm starting to think that this is just too small of an application to really keep it going. I mean, even up here, I can see flames coming out the top of the rocket stove just from this one stick. So, concept-wise, it's not bad. I just think it's too small in the execution. But, you know, this was $22 and about 2 hours worth of screwing around. And I really wish this had worked better. I couldn't find a 2-inch nipple to use, but you know, if anybody wants to throw me $20-30 my way to help pay for the experiment and pay for, you know, help pay for the next one too, because I think if I do this out of a 2 or 3 inch, keeping the same basic proportions, that it'd probably work a little bit better. Anyhow, and like I said, that's just the one stick. I dumped out most of the soot. We're not getting boiling, but you know, let me break the stick up here a little bit. Let me chuck those in there. As you can see, once the fire's inside, you know, she draws really well. And I think it just went out. Yeah. So, yeah. Good concept. Execution, not so much. The wind's coming from the backside and blowing it back down the tube. That was kind of interesting. But then, as soon as the wind stops blowing, it goes right back out the chimney again. I thought that was quite interesting. I put a couple of pieces of cardboard in there just to help it keep going, and I still got the fat wood in there. That's why it's so smoky and so sooty. I mean, I'm not going to want to drink that, but for the sake of, firing test 1, I think this is perfectly valid. Now, it's not going to feed it down into itself, the way the larger stoves do, but you can still see the flames actively pulling into the firing chamber, into the hot box, except when it's, doing that. Like I said, concept's good, but I think the execution's just a little on the too small of a scale side to do what I really want it to do, which is, actual rocket stove, but small enough to carry hanging off a backpack. And you can see there, with open flame, it draws really well, unless the wind's coming from the back, like it's trying to do there. Let me sit back a little bit. I was hoping I'd be able to get the water to at least boil on some of the coals that were in there from the heat rising. The rocket stove itself is way too hot to even touch at this point. I think with dry tinder, well, the tinder was dry. With the dry kindling and dry pencil-sized sticks, this would work. But again, I don't think it's going to be quite as successful as I wanted it to be. Anyhow, like I said, I'll put the plans down in the description, and if you want to build this, maybe a little bit on the larger size, or if somebody wants to PayPal me some money at straycat_74 at yahoo.com, I will see if I can find some 2, maybe 2.5 or 3-inch block pipe, and I'll try this experiment again. Yeah, I'm going to let this burn down, and oh, yeah, the water is getting warm, but we're talking, I've been out here for half hour or so, and it's only just got to the point that I can't put my finger in the water, which means it's a little over 100 degrees. About 110 degrees if my finger starts to burn, whether I want it to or not. But I shaved off some of this. I used the scissors on the Coke box, and I didn't use that much off the Coke box. There was about, from my hand down to the end, left on this side, so I didn't use a lot of cardboard. But I've got my tomahawk, a couple of pieces of fat wood left. You can see my, well, maybe you can't see mine. I used that initially to get a bed of fat wood going, and of course my ignition source. I'm going to let this keep going until it's cool again enough to touch, and we'll go back downstairs. One last quick thing before we let this go completely out. I mean, we're getting bubbles down there. I mean, it's not actively boiling, but it was damn close to it. I think with dry kindling and a little bit more time, maybe not quite so much back breeze, this would have worked out a lot better. Hello folks, StrayCat74 here. Welcome back to the Basement of Solitude. The concept is good. I think that if I had been using aged, dried tinder and branches, it would have worked a lot better. Like I said, the apple branches that I was using had been out in the rain. We had rain like half of all the last week, so it hasn't had a chance to dry. So I got a lot of smoldering, and I had a really good bed of coals, and the water almost got to boiling, but I think this is still going to be a little bit too small. One of the suggestions my father made after I'd already cut and started weld it is leave this part straight. Put this cut in, do a 90 degrees, but leave this way. That way the firebox is horizontal, draws in, and then goes up. That would have simplified construction by, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 minutes. Would have definitely saved me a lot of this nasty, I'm going to call that spalling. And yes, it's dripping water right now because this was still quite warm. So I took the quart of water that was on top of it, dumped it on and through, and then stuck it in the sink and hit it with some cold water. Just wiped it off a little bit. Not sure if you're going to be able to see up in there. Actually, I've got a flashlight. Not that that really helps any, but I mean, I got a lot of soot from using the fat wood. And like I said, I had a really good bed of coals in there, so we were getting hot water, just not boiling. I was hoping that this would work like the larger versions do and would have been able to draw enough air to completely combust everything and give us boiling water in a few minutes. So apparently my backpack pocket rocket stove is, well, I'm going to have to try this again. I'm not going to call this busted, but first wiring, not so well. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, find some place to host the plans, and once you see them, you'll understand why I go plans. And like I said, this was an angle grinder, a wire welder, and a piece of $12 nipple and some flat stock. I think if I had used 2-inch, 2.5, maybe even 3-inch conduit, and if I had a tube bender so I could make a really tight U, or at least a J-hook bend in it, soaked it in vinegar to get rid of all of the galvanizing, and by that I mean like for a week, then welded on the feet and the handle. It'd be a lot lighter because this is quite heavy. Now, being black pipe, and you can see up at the top there how thick that is. This is 1/8 inch, and this is slightly thicker than that, so like I said, interesting concept. Execution could have been a little bit better, but like I said, this cost me $22 and about 2 hours worth of time. So I'm going to end the recording here. I'm going to let you guys go. And, well, I guess I'll see you next time, alright? Now, folks, if you like today's video, please give me a thumbs up, hit the like, subscribe, the little bell icon, leave a comment section below, because YouTube changed the way their algorithms work, and, well, if you don't comment, they won't update you when I upload new content. Don't forget, I have a Twitch, I have a Patreon, and I have a PayPal that you can donate money to me at straycat_74 at yahoo.com. So, from the basement of solitude, I'll catch you next time.